Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, Lewis Hamilton is a four-time Formula One world champion. He is statistically the greatest British driver of all time and will inevitably go down in history as one of the greatest of all time. Yet, he divides fan opinion more than any driver in Formula One history, certainly since I started watching in 1992. He has a big loyal fan base that absolutely love him, but there is also a side to the Formula One fan base that absolutely hate him. But why is there so much hate for Lewis Hamilton? In this video, I'm going to look at some of the reasons why there seems to be so much hatred for him, and then after each point, look at the other side of the argument. Here goes. So first off then, there is the argument that he has always had it easy in Formula One. You know, he's always had one of, if not the fastest cars on the grid. He never drove a Toro Rosso to victory like Seb Vettel did, or learnt his trade in a Minardi just like Alonso. Going even further back, people say, he was picked up by Ron Dennis at an early age and McLaren funded him through his career. So, he's had no struggle in Formula One. He was almost guaranteed a seat there at a young age and it was funded for him and he was going to get that seat and he was always going to be in one of the best cars. He was dumped in the best car in 2007. And then when that car started to go wrong, he went off to Mercedes, who then ended up with the best car. So, that is an argument that is genuinely out there as to why people dislike him. And the fact is, it's true. He hasn't always had the best car, but he has always had a car capable of competing with the best and for victories. I am a firm believer that a young driver should be cutting his teeth in a Sauber or a Minardi as we saw in the past. For example, Senna in a Tolman and a Lotus, or Michael Schumacher in the Jordan when he debuted, of course, and then in the first few years with Benetton, pre-94 basically. I just like to see new young drivers cut their teeth with a smaller team first. Learn their trade, learn a little bit about Formula One first. But I've always found it very difficult to throw that argument at Lewis Hamilton. At the end of the day, he obviously displayed enough talent for someone like Ron Dennis, who is notoriously difficult to please, to look at him, see massive potential for the future, and sign him up at a young age. Most F1 teams, don't just back drivers for the sake of it. Also, going back through his Formula One career, when has he really shown that he doesn't deserve a top seat? There have been many drivers in the past that have driven for the best, but have shown a drop-off, I guess you can call it, and that leaves people asking, should such and such be dropped by such and such? I can't think of an example when Lewis Hamilton has been in that position. And actually, to be fair, the same with Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, he had a rough 2014 at Red Bull, but I never considered him being dropped or thought that he would be dropped or even considered that he should be dropped. And from race one in his Formula One career, Lewis Hamilton, like many others, has proven he absolutely belongs at the sharp end of the grid. So while I understand that argument, that he's always had one of, if not the best cars, and I would like to have seen him enter Formula One with a lower team and really learn about the sport that way, he's never really shown that drop-off to make us question why he's there. I think the next 2 points could probably be put together, but we'll start off with this one, and that is the way he dresses, the way he speaks, the way he acts away from the track and sometimes at it. I guess you could say, and I've mentioned it before, the whole brand Hamilton thing. Some people genuinely hate him for that. They don't like that celebrity lifestyle he leads. I'll come on to my opinion on that a little bit later properly. There are even those that question how genuine his accent is, for example. The way he speaks now is very different to how he spoke back in 2007, but is that accent's fake, or is it that he now has the confidence to express who he is? At the end of the day, the only person that knows the answer to that is Lewis Hamilton. And I will say this, it's his life and he can do what the hell he wants with it. I will do what I want with my life, and you guys watching will do what you want with yours. It's nothing to do with anybody else. But that leads me nicely onto the next point, and that is that he doesn't fit into the F1 norm. There are a lot of F1 fans out there that still see drivers as they were or appeared to be 15, 20, 30 years ago. Yes, playboys, big personalities, the drivers of the rock and roll era, but ultimately we always believed or were led to believe that they ate, slept and breathed Formula One and racing, whether they were at the track or at home. That was what they were all about. We didn't see these celebrity lifestyles, probably James Hunt aside, but even then I don't think he gets the hate that Lewis Hamilton gets. And the thing is, I completely get that. My era of F1 was the 90s onwards. I always believed drivers behaved in a certain way, like I've just said. However, the fact is, they didn't. In the good old days of F1, there was no Instagram, Twitter, no social media presence as a whole. It didn't exist. Add to that, journalism wasn't as lazy as it can be now, and so we didn't get that gossipy insight into drivers' lives. And to be fair, as I remember growing up, I didn't really care. I wasn't really interested in what a driver did away from the track. Like I say, it was the racing that mattered. I watched that. I didn't care what Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, or whoever got up to away from the track. It wasn't of interest to me. However, if the technology and information sharing we have now was around back then, I am absolutely 100% certain we would have seen very different sides to some of our favourite squeaky clean drivers. No doubt whatsoever. And sticking with the social media side of things, as we've seen recently, he doesn't help himself at times either. Whichever side of the argument you fall on with what happened over Christmas, the fact of the matter remains, if he hadn't have shared that to Instagram, nobody would have seen it. And so the point I'm making is social media opens people like Lewis Hamilton, many other celebrities, and just anybody from day-to-day life up to that hate. I'm not saying that's okay, but the fact of the matter is that is the world we live in right now. But being the old man that I am, I just don't understand why celebrities in general feel the need to share every single second and every single corner of their lives full stop. Like I said earlier, though, it's their lives and I guess they can do what the hell they want with it. So there you go. Now, there is a point that I sincerely wish that I didn't need to even think about, let alone address or discuss in a video like this, but sadly I have to, and that is racism. The sad fact is there are actually people out there that not only hate him for the colour of his skin, but also are more than comfortable expressing it on public forums like social media, for example. So there are probably people saying right now, as I've just said, that, oh, it's so easy to play the racism card. But when you look at the abuse, and it is abuse that he suffered over the years, you know, if you're not sure of it, go back and look at 2007, 2008 and look at the abuse he got from some of, I don't know, people in Spain, not just Spain, but across the world because of the colour of his skin. It's a fact. He suffered abuse with that. And it's actually part of some small-minded people's argument against him. It's wrong, and for God's sake, it's 2018, but it is. And what I'm about to say is probably going to upset somebody, but if this next line upsets you, then you probably should be offended. And that is that, honestly, anybody who hates on any other person because of the colour of their skin are the absolute dregs of humanity and shouldn't be allowed to leave the house, let alone form any opinion on anybody. End of. That is my personal opinion. It is the opinion of most normal-minded people, anybody with a brain, basically. But discrimination is, in any way, shape or form, is never a reason to hate on anybody. Get a grip, it's 2018, come on. The final point that I want to raise is his arrogance and attitude. Now, many, including me, if I'm being completely honest, believe he comes across as arrogant rather than a confident person. He also has an attitude that makes it very easy for people to really go on the attack with him. And for me, that is pretty much his tendency to sulk and, I guess, throw his toys out of his pram when things aren't going his own way. Not the greatest phrases to use, but that's kind of how it feels with him. But I will say, try and find me a world champion, certainly a multiple world champion, that hasn't displayed some form of arrogance at some point. Usually, if you are successful at something you love doing and have spent your life working towards it, arrogance will break through. So I don't really buy that argument, even though I kind of agree with it in a way, if that makes any sense. Probably not. Massive contradiction, but there you go. What I will say, and something I don't get, is when he is getting a bit sulky, for want of a better word, or things aren't going his own way and he is getting a bit stroppy, he gets a lot of hate for that. Yet Alonso is applauded for it, or Raikkonen gets a load of memes made about it. Yet Hamilton, and actually as well, of course, Sebastian Vettel, get a lot of hate for that. What's the difference? Well, Lewis and Seb both have 4 world titles and are massively successful, and they will go down as 2 of the greatest drivers in Formula 1 history, whether people like it or not. And I guess that there is the problem, in my opinion. Anybody who is successful in what they do is hated by anyone who isn't a big fan. Look at, I don't know, football, for example. Unless you are a Man United fan, you will more than likely hate them. And that comes down to their success. Same with Liverpool in the 70s and 80s. But back to F1, anybody who wasn't a Senna fan pretty much disliked him or possibly even hated him. Same with Michael Schumacher. But now they are 2 of the greatest of all time. And are seen as that, even by some of their biggest critics. And F1 and football aside, I think that's true of most successful sports stars, to be fair. And I suppose as well, I mean, just really thinking about it, when you look at this last 4 years, Mercedes and I guess Lewis Hamilton have pretty much dominated the last 4 years, and before that, Sebastian Vettel dominated, and people have called that boring. So just a random thought that came to me there was maybe it's people blaming them for the sport being boring. I don't know, just a random thought there, possibly could be the case. But let's jump to it then. What are my views on Lewis Hamilton and my personal opinions on him? First off, then, there is no doubt whatsoever in my mind that he is the fastest guy on the grid at the moment. He is an incredible talent and completely deserves all the plaudits he gets from his fans and from the media for what he has done and what he has achieved on track. The way he drives, his aggression, his speed, it's just amazing to watch. And there is no doubt that he will go down as one of the greatest of all time. the greatest? I guess we'll see, but I find it hard to place current drivers on a list of greats, if I'm being honest. You'll have noticed in my top 5 drivers of all time that no current driver featured on there, and that's mainly because they haven't stopped achieving. We don't know what they've completely achieved yet and what their final stats are, and we also don't really know what legacy they're going to leave behind, but he will be up there, no doubt. However, I'm not a fan of his attitude or some of the things he does away from the track. With the latter, though, as I said, it's his life and he's entitled to do with it what he pleases. I'll do what I want with mine and you guys will do what you want with yours. It's nothing to do with anybody else, but that doesn't mean that people have to like it or that I have to like it. As for at the track, again with his social media, he doesn't help himself sometimes. His comments in Monaco back in 2011, although likely a joke, didn't endear him to me or many others, nor do his moans over team radio and to the press when he doesn't get his way or, as I said earlier, throwing his toys out his pram. But the latter, that can be put down to pressure and adrenaline, heat of the moment stuff. At the end of the day, he is the fastest guy out there in the fastest car. The second he sits in that car, he's expected to win. He's not expected to bring it home 8th, 9th, 10th. He's expected to win. So there is pressure on him the second his backside hits that seat. So with that pressure, all that adrenaline pumping through, when someone shoves a microphone under your nose, you're probably not really going to say the correct PR answers. Don't get me wrong, I love that about drivers. I want drivers to speak their mind, but that kind of comment is just completely unnecessary, whether a joke or not. It's not going to go down well. The whole, once again, Brand Hamilton thing, it doesn't bother me. I actually admire him for what he wants to do when he retires. He knows what he wants to do. He has aspirations in music, in fashion, in whatever. He's got so much that he wants to do when he retires, and that's great. Again, I admire him for that. He doesn't want to retire and go off with family and spend the rest of his life on a beach. He doesn't want to go and race in another category. He's got a whole other area he wants to explore, and that's brilliant. I will say, though, I don't really want to see Justin Bieber or Pharrell Williams or Mo Farah or whoever splashed all over Formula One weekends. We should be focusing on the sport and the racing, but at the same time, that leads me to another point. What he's done for Formula One, the promotion of its image, taking it to new fan bases, breaking that mould, is fantastic. Formula One is long overdue a kick up the backside and shove into the 21st century, but he's forced them into that, and Liberty are taking that and running with it. But Lewis Hamilton, let's not forget, and he will be remembered for this, has given F1 that shove that it needed. And going forward, that is going to be massively important if the sport is to gain young fans and therefore survive, because I will watch Formula One until the day I die. There are many people of my era and older who will watch F1 until the day they die. But when we're gone, who is there? We need the young fans in Formula One. Without fans, F1 will not survive. And I think that will end up being Lewis Hamilton's legacy. People will say to me, he's a Marmite driver in that you either love him or you hate him. And whilst I get the thought behind that, I completely disagree. I am not Lewis Hamilton's biggest fan by a long way, but I would never, ever go as far as to say that I hate him. As I say at the end of all these type of videos, they are just my opinions, but what do you think? What are your opinions on Lewis Hamilton? Are you a fan? Do you hate him? And what kind of legacy do you think he will leave behind in Formula One? Let me know in the comments down below. I will be back with more content soon, and don't forget to join us this Sunday where we will be live with our Sunday debate as ever. But in the meantime, don't forget to follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Facebook and Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.